Welcome into PFF TV, Shannon Ford alongside Cam Mellor. We're going to talk about wide receivers. These are the guys that put on a show week after week in the college football space. These guys are fun to watch.
They're really fun to watch, and we've seen quite a few dynamic receiving performances this season so far.
All right, so when you look right off the bat, Justin Jefferson out of LSU, I think a lot of people look at him and go, well, Joe Burrow, of course Justin Jefferson is doing well. But he has caught, on the season, 100% of his contested catches and for 7 missed tackles, which is pretty insane.
Yeah, for a guy his size to get these contested catches, that's what you expect, but to force those 7 missed tackles, average a ridiculous yards after catch per reception number. This guy is not just a big target to jump and moss a defender. This is a guy to get in space, allow him to make the contested catch if necessary. A big reason, though, why Burrow is up there on our Heisman list is that Justin Jefferson is coming down with the plays that maybe aren't put in the best position and then taking those plays for a lot more yards than maybe they should have. Jefferson is a one-man wrecking crew right now for LSU.
One-man wrecking crew, watch out. I like it.
I like what he's doing.
All right, another man that's been really solid in the contested catch space is T. Higgins. I mean, his 6'4" frame has to help him in that regard. I wish I was that tall to just jump over people. But he's dominating.
It'd be nice. We can talk to Steve about being that tall maybe another time. But yeah, dominates, and he dominates against Syracuse as well. This, again, after a game against Texas A&M that he and his fellow receivers have bailed out Trevor Lawrence this season more times than they have had to all of last season combined at this point. Love what Higgins has been able to do. We've compared him to Kenny Golladay so far, so quite the awesome pro comp with how Galladay's performed, and it's just another performance like he had against Syracuse that you see those comps. He's making these highlight reel catches on just an ordinary down, an ordinary pass, because his quarterback's been a little off to start the season. So what Higgins has been able to do to be this reliable number 1 for Lawrence, certainly justified by his 3rd overall ranked grade.
Reliable, and we see that on PFF. His numbers are super consistent week over week, which you love to see.
Love it. Love to see that. You got to see it all season.
All right, Alabama wide receiver Jeudy. He's got 3.33 yards per route run, which is the highest since the start of 2018 among active college players with 300 or more routes run over that span, which is...
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
He's an eligible pass catcher a lot of time, but he's making the yards count when he does get targeted on those snaps as well. He doesn't have necessarily the biggest game against South Carolina. He was targeted double-digit times in the first 2 games. South Carolina clearly game planned against him. What that did, though, was free up Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, and that's the big game you see from Tua. And then the other receivers, Jeudy, doesn't necessarily have that big game, doesn't have the big grade either in that game, but he is the nation's best route runner. He's the nation's possibly the best all-around receiver. And so his 2 big games still to date before the South Carolina game, it wasn't a poor game by any standards, but it wasn't up there with what we've seen so far. So we'd love to see him see more double-digit targets again, maybe as they get to SEC play, because he's that good and he's that deserving of it. But I think our lead draft analyst, Mike Renner, said he is the one offensive prospect that he does not need to see another snap for to know he's still a first-round talent.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, just looking at the PFF grades week over week, it can set off some alarms where his grades gradually go down, but it's not to be worried about.
It's not to be worried about. Jeudy is there. He is a first-round talent, perhaps even top 5 type of guy.
A guy that we're surprised to see just making our list is Laviska Shenault. He's a guy who got hurt last year, but has come back, and we're starting to see that production that we expected of him.
Yeah, he was the guy who was in the Heisman race last year from Colorado before injury, forcing missed tackles, making these dynamic returns in the return game, running the Wildcat quarterback. Everything he was doing last year was leading him to be not only the highest graded receiver, but also in the Heisman race this year. Finally, yes, I know they lost to Air Force, but he's finally targeted a lot in the offense, seeing double-digit targets. Head coach Mel Tucker realizes the talent that he has with Shenault. He scores a touchdown through the air, another one rushing. He's a guy who dynamic, again, in the return game. So more touches for Shenault only means more things. His biggest game to date is on the game that he's utilized most. So let's see the Buffaloes start to utilize him a lot more and get a lot more production out of him.
Speaking of more targets means more things for certain guys. CeeDee Lamb out of Oklahoma. I mean, this guy has barely any touches when you look at how he's produced for this Oklahoma team.
Yeah, and it's almost not fair because they're so talented with Hurts, Sermon, and Brooks in the backfield now. Right. They don't necessarily have to start throwing these downfield passes. Maybe they do in the Big 12. We'll see if that happens. But on 11 targets here. 11 targets,
57 routes.
He's averaging 25 yards, over 25 yards per catch. It's a perfect passer rating when he is targeted. So let's see him and let's see Hurts start to target him more. Because again, just like Shenault, This is a guy you target more, you start to feed more in the offense, and he only will yield positive results. Lamb is possibly up there with Jeudy as the best all-around receiver in college football.
And he's another guy, when you look at his PFF grades, you see the outlier in week 2 in the 90s and then a couple lower numbers, but not to worry, it's literally just because he's not getting targeted as much as he should be.
Target him more, and you see what happens. He's this guy that reverses the field. He's faster than most of the players on the field. He can make these contested catches as well that we opened this with, but Lamb is a guy that does it all, and we need to see a little bit more.
All right, so what did we learn from our wide receiver top list? Target them more.
Target them more.
Target them more. They've all got great quarterbacks. Target them more. All right, and read more at pff.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting that big red button. Shannon Ford, Cam Mellor. We'll see you later.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.